Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this episode, we're going to talk about the psychological to physiological relationship and the impact that has on stress and anxiety. So chronic stress and anxiety causes physiological sensations in our body. We get increased heart rate, increased breath rate, blood pressure increases, and you can almost just subjectively feel that heightened level of alertness. It what causes us to go into that fight or flight mode. We generally don't like to sit still. Our body's been primed for movement, we have more energy, but for people with anxiety, those feelings and sensations can get conditioned so that actually it creates negative associations such as avoidance behaviors. Now, to be happy and be successful in life, you really want to do the things that you want to do. But what happens if you're conditioned to a feeling and a sensation in your body that's preventing you from being able to do something? Say, for example, you really want to learn how to swim, but you're afraid of the water. And when every time you go to step in to go to the water, all of a sudden your heart races, you start to breathe fast. You get those sensations in your body, and that then sends the signals to actually say, no, I can't do this. But the way that's actually happening is just a framing of our thoughts. It's our psychology. The sensations that you get when you've been conditioned to this aren't necessarily true. All it is your body's going through a process to prepare you to take action on something, to learn something new, and to move you towards a goal. If that goal has a significant meaning that we don't believe we can actually achieve, then we'll just tend to avoid it instead. So by reshifting and reframing our psychological relationship to our own physiology, we can start to break through those barriers so we can start to move towards our goals, live a more happy life, and if you want to, be more successful. But how we actually go about that is to retrain how we breathe. It's to put ourselves into stressful environments and remain calm in our mind. So one way to do this is typically using the ice. Many people have ice baths, they have cold exposure, they might then jump into those or step into those, and what's that going to do? It's going to cause a massive stress response, it's going to cause a reflex, it's going to cause an increase in adrenaline, noradrenaline, all those chemicals that get released, our heart rate's going to increase and your breathing's going to increase. But what happens if you then take conscious control and stay calm and start to pay attention to the thoughts that you're having? Over time, we can break these down and we can start to reframe and shift our thoughts. What we need to tend to do is we need to look at these fears and this conditioned fear and break it down into smaller sections that are achievable goals. Now, if we break it into achievable goals, at the very beginning, once you're successful, you don't become less fearful, you actually become more courageous. The more courageous you get as you go through the movements and start to make bigger goals and move towards them, then we can actually start to be more courageous. So for example, let's go back to the issue with the swimming in the water. If I was to say to you, okay, let's just make a goal for the first week, can you just get to the water and just put your feet in there? For some people that have a massive fear, that might be the first step they have to take. But by just dipping their toes in, they've already took one step further to become more courageous. Then if you ask them, say, okay, can we take a step in and can we move towards maybe knee height? And then you just gradually, week by week, take yourself to the point where, okay, I can get up to my neck, and then you might go, well, how about we try to swim or start to integrate some swimming lessons? As you can see, an individual can go from being so afraid to the water to taking the steps to go towards that. But what we can do that same thing with our physiology without actually having to step into the environment. Although going into the environment is going to be most beneficial, but we can utilize things such as our innate panic alarm. So let's talk about that. If you were to hold your breath, to simply breathe out, pinch your nose and hold your breath, and just close your eyes and just pay attention to how you feel. Eventually what's going to happen is your brain's going to send a signal to say you're not breathing and you're going to start to panic. That panic sensation is exactly the same response that you get when you have an anxious sensation about something in your environment. So what happens if you can just train yourself just to actually get used to the physical sensation, then we can improve when we go to get into our environment. We've learned how to take control of the physical, that's going to help us move more with the psychological and the mental. So how does this actually happen? And this actually comes down to our metabolism and our breathing. We learn our conditioned fears through a chemical called carbon dioxide. As we become stressed and we get energy, breakdown of energy, carbon dioxide is increased. But when carbon dioxide increases to a significant amount in our amygdala, and the amygdala is a part of our brain which is our fear response, it's where our emotions are switched on, and it's what actually sends the signals to the stress response system. When that CO2 rises, then if it's conditioned to a continuous stimulus, for example, or a severely traumatic stimulus, if someone was, when they were a baby, they were dropped in water and they maybe perhaps had an incident where they thought they were going to suffocate and drown, then that stimulus is going to lead into their traumatic events in their life, which is going to cause the conditioned fear. But the conditioned fear can be the actual sensation itself if you're repeatedly exposing yourself from that. So the levels of CO2 increase, that's going to send a stress response to our body. That's going to cause us to breathe faster. If that continuously happens, such as in chronic stress or in anxiety because of the thoughts that we create in our mind, then we condition the sensation itself to how we feel in our mind. So by exposing yourself perhaps to high levels of CO2 through things such as breath holds, through things such as high intensity exercise followed by controlled breathing, then we can start to utilize top-down control. What I mean by that is utilizing our thoughts to say, actually, we're safe, we know we are, we've learned the knowledge that we need to know all that's happening right now is CO2 rising in my body, I'm actually okay. But we break these goals down to attainable goals and increase them over a period of time, then we can actually unlearn that conditioning of our physical sensations, and we become more courageous, but also we become more aware of our physiological sensations in our body. We improve our psychology, and it allows us to take that extra step at reducing our stress and anxiety levels. One thing that can help us really reframe the feelings and sensations that we have in our body and how that relates to our psychology is just understanding that stress itself isn't inherently bad. It's priming our body to take action. It's as simply as that. If we're in a position where we need to take action on something and move towards a goal, then it gives us the energy to do that. If we're in a position where we need to run away from something and escape, it just allows us to do that. However, over time, we get this bad association between our psychology and our physiology, and that's what we need to shift and change. By doing so, we're actually going to put ourselves into that state of utilizing the innate panic alarm to bring our fear response out. This is actually an unconditioned, this is innate, it's a part of our biology. But by putting ourselves into that uncomfortable position, it's just like getting in the ice bath or treading our toes in the water. It's going to allow us to decondition or get used to that high level of stress, that high level of concern, whilst we stay calm and relaxed in the mind. If you enjoyed this video or you have any questions, hit subscribe, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you.